Sunday Surefire Podcast. I'm your host, the Commish. Joining me today is the co-host, Ethan Weaver.
Kamish, how we doing?
We are doing pretty well, Ethan. Thanks for asking. We have a Thursday night football game to discuss here. We have the Houston Texans visiting the New York Jets. We're going to give you a quick rundown of how we think that game's going to go, maybe who's going to win, maybe who's going to cover, stuff like that. Then we're going to get into our DraftKings captains lineups that we like to set for these Thursday night matchups. We're going to tell you who to drop into your captain spot. And of course, by that, what I mean is there's 6-player lineups on DraftKings where you can designate one player to be your captain. That player gives you 1.5 times as many points as they normally would. However, they do cost 1.5 times their normal amount to get them into your 6-player lineup. So, got to be strategic about who you get into your captain slot. So we'll tell you who to roll with that. And if we have one, we can tell you about a bargain player that you can set in your lineup, really cheap, that can make a difference for you in these smaller contests. So before we do that, let's get to the football game. We got Texans again at the Jets this week. The Jets come in at the moment as 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is currently 42, Ethan. What's going to happen this Thursday night?
People may be surprised to see the Jets actually favored to win this game. The game is in New York. So, neutral field, it's essentially a pick 'em. But I actually do think the Jets take this one. The Jets, if anyone's due, it's got to be the New York Jets, right? They're 2-6. They're tied for dead last record-wise with the New England Patriots in the AFC East, which is shocking. But I just feel like Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, they have to come through on Thursday night prime time against kind of a reeling Houston Texans team in terms of injuries. They just lost Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins is still on IR. So now you're going out there offensively with the likes of Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, Dalton Schultz. Obviously, you have a good ground game in Joe Mixon. But I do think C.J. Stroud's going to struggle. The Jets only allow 161 yards through the air, second fewest in the league. So I don't think I think C.D. Stroud is going to rely on Joe Mixon in this one. And I just think the Jets are going to come through. I don't, it's not like the Texans have been playing great football this year. And like I said, I think the Jets are due. I think Aaron Rodgers, there's just too much talent on that team. You have Devontae Adams, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Breece Hall. It's like at some point things got to click for the New York Jets. So I would take the Jets in this one. The over-under is set at 42. I do think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. So instead of taking the under, I'd probably rather take a very conservative over. But I do think this is going to be a lower-scoring affair, and I think the Jets are going to win this one.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one. Obviously, Houston's a better team on paper, better record and all that. But I just think I have to agree with you with the Jets. As much as I don't want to agree with you, I feel like I have to. We're both lifelong Patriots fans, if you couldn't tell, folks. But so we have, there it is. There it is. Ethan is wearing the Jets daddy's shirt right now. Tom,
Yeah.
if you're a Jets fan out there, just know that the Patriots, we still own you, but that's fine. Good job getting that loser Aaron Rodgers on your team. But yeah, good work. That worked out. So yeah, but I actually am going to go with the Jets to win this one. As much as I don't want to do it, I'll say it. Got to be objective when it comes to the betting front. At a 1.5-point spread, you're probably not betting that. You're just going to go ahead and pick one of these teams on the money line. If you're going to go Jets, maybe you go with an opposite spread of maybe juice it up to like 2.5 or something. Of course, the scary part of that is the Jets can't make a field goal to save their lives, as we saw last week.
Greg the leg, yikes.
Oh, Greg needs to put the leg away and probably move on to something else more productive after a solid NFL career. Nothing against him, but dude, it's done. Like it's okay. Like let the young kids handle the kicking from here on out. But I'm gonna agree with you. I'll go with that. Conservative over as well for me too. Way more fun to bet than an under. Like you don't want to bet.
Nah, come on. Unders are no fun. Boo.
Yeah. So I just go with. If you're just doing Jets, maybe do like a conservative under. Something. Take a touchdown or so off of it. And you're going to get to even money just like that, if not plus a little bit more. So I think that's the way to bet it if you're going to do it. With the Jets, just water finding its level with the Jets. There is some talent there, and hopefully this is the week for New York fans' sake that they can go ahead and get a win. Because by the time this game kicks off, the Yankees are going to be out of the World Series. So City of New York going on a decade plus without a championship, which makes us in New England very happy here. But we won't talk much more about the Jets. Done with them in primetime games. But let's get to the captains lineups here. Again, these are the guys that you put into your daily fantasy football lineups in these contests. Again, they score 1.5 times as many points as they normally would, but they also cost 1.5 times the salary to get into your lineup, Ethan. So who are you going with for your captain in this ugly Thursday night matchup?
It's definitely ugly. And I did want to mention I was actually in the stands at Gillette Stadium watching the lowly Jets lose to our New England Patriots. So I can't imagine how Aaron Rodgers was feeling in that one, going to 2-6, and they can't even beat the Patriots with Jacoby Brissett at the helm after Drake May unfortunately got concussed. So
Ugly,
yeah, very ugly. So
ugly.
yeah, like I said, I don't see the Jets going 2-7, but I mean the Jets do. I mean, sometimes the Jets are just going to Jets, but I'm going to stick with the Jets at my captain spot, and I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. I just think Garrett Wilson has been pretty good over the last few weeks. Since Devontae Adams has come to the team, he's had 17 targets in those two games, 10 receptions for 174 yards. I think he's due for some positive TD regression. He hasn't had many touchdowns this year. And I think Garrett Wilson is the best receiver, best target earner on this team, even with Devontae Adams there. I think Garrett Wilson is looked at early and often. I think he's going to make some big plays. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get on track. He just needs to. I think Aaron Rodgers actually has a decent day against the Houston Texans. So this is a hard game to kind of project it. I mean, to see who's going to really break out. I'm just going to go with a guy that's been pretty consistent over the last few weeks in Garrett Wilson. I like I said, I was teetering between a couple different players, but ultimately went with a guy that I think is relatively safe in terms of the targets he's going to get.
Fair enough. I see where you're going with that. I actually don't have Wilson in my lineup at all this week, so I guess I'm obligated to not like it. Um, Even though I understand the logic, I hear where you're coming from. The Jet I put in my lineup for safety standpoint was Brees Hall, just because he's been getting it done lately on the ground as well as through the air. But he's not my captain. I'm for the second week in a row.
Dude, I was gonna do the same thing. This is who I was debating with putting as my captain spot. So
I'm
just
going to
say
go Greg the. No, I'm not going to do that.
no, no.
I'm going to go the other way to the other kicker, and I'm going to put again, not Greg the leg. I'm going to go Kaimi Fairbairn, kicker for the Houston Texans in my lineup, $7,800. I just like the spot here for Fairbairn. I mean, the Texans as a team have attempted the fourth most field goals on the season entering this game, and without Diggs out there, without Nico Collins back from IR quite yet, I think they're going to struggle to move the ball a little bit. I think they can still get it done with Mixon and Tank Dell to the point where they're getting the ball into field goal range. And then when they get around the red area, that's where they're going to some of their drives could stall out, and it could just leave for a big scoring opportunity for Kaimi Fairbairn with such a close spread. It's projected to be a tight game. Teams like to take the points in those type of games. So if it's a 4th and 3, maybe they usually go for it. Maybe they just decide, hey, D'Amico Ryan's defensive minded coach just says, hey, let's go get our 3 points here, and we'll keep Fairbairn busy. So, and the other good thing about doing this, slapping a kicker into your captain slot, is that it gives you a lot of flexibility to do other things. So I was able to get Rodgers in my lineup as well as Brees Hall, a couple other high profile pieces as well. So I don't have a bargain play again for the second week in a row. I'm kind of wrapping a 2-1 captain and bargain play into this with Kaimi Fairbairn for $7,800.
No, I actually love that call. It's funny because the two people I was debating was Garrett Wilson and Keami Fairbairn. It's funny. I was going back and forth so much. I actually just double checked my lineup. I actually have Fairbairn in my captain spot right now. I'm gonna change that.
There you go. I got into Ethan's phone and put the guy you should have picked in his captain slot.
No, I mean, like I legit was going back and forth that much, and he's locked in there right now. But I mean, you look at his last four. I mean, he's been so consistent. I mean, 11, 12, 12, 16 the last 4 weeks. I mean, that's $7,800 at 1.5 times those points. I do think this is going to be a situation where CJ Stroud is going to have a tough time moving the ball, especially once you get in the red area. I think it's going to lend to a lot of field goals. So I really like the call because, like I said, he was literally in my lineup and out of my lineup, in my lineup, and apparently he's still in there. So love the call.
There we go. I like that. Hey, So it sounds kind of crazy going with the kickers in your lineup. Maybe it's the former soccer player in me just going back to the guys who kick the ball, and I think Fairbairn's going to get it done this week. Did you have a bargain play for us?
So, like, if I went with Fairbairn as my captain, no. But I guess if I'm gonna, I'll talk the Garrett Wilson route. If Garrett Wilson is your captain, I think kind of a, I mean, kind of a cop out bargain play. You almost got to go Xavier Hutchinson, right? The wide receiver two for the Houston Texans. He's only $4,000. Tank Dell, he's obviously the wide receiver one this week, but I think he's gonna have tough sledding, especially if Sauce Gardner's on him. I think that's going to lend to Hutchinson. I know, and Hutchinson, it's not like he hasn't been playing a decent amount of snaps. I think the last 4 weeks, I believe he's played over 60% of the snaps. It hasn't led to any fantasy production, but now obviously with Diggs out and now Collins on IR, I mean Hutchinson should get some looks considering Sauce is going to be on tank at times. I do think Dalton Schultz could be a sneaky play as well. I know he's not crazy overpriced because CJ Stroud's not going to have a lot of options out there. It could lead to a heavy Mixon game, but Mixon is pretty heavily priced.
Yeah, Mixon's very expensive in this one. I originally when I went to go build my lineup, I put him in my captain slot, and I just hated what it looked like because you couldn't do anything else. Like you're betting on three lottery tickets if you go that route. So Mixon is in my lineup, but he's a guy that I just couldn't spend the 1.5 multiplier on from a cost standpoint to get him in there. But I like what you're doing with Hutchinson. You're just going with guys that are going to run routes. You guys are going to be out there and playing, which is what you need if you're going when you in these bargain plays. It's a big part of these guys scoring. Obviously, is being on the field. So leaning into the snap percentages probably only going to go up with guys like Diggs and Collins not playing in this one. But so that's what we have for you, folks. Another ugly Thursday night game. Let's get the Jets off prime time going forward, please. I want to say this is their fifth primetime game in 9 weeks, so I'm all set with them going forward. I think I speak for the rest of the nation when I say that too. But
I think I got my swagger back.
and the DFS grind does not stop for anything. It is a week after week after week process, and we're happy to bring you the best DFS content around right here on Sunday Surefire. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, folks, if you like what you hear. And what we do here is we talk about some high-profile players that are expensive to get into your DraftKings lineups. We talk about some cheaper players. We talk defenses. And then we like to give you a hot take at the end of these episodes. But before we get into the good stuff for Week 9, why don't you tell me what you got right in Week 8, Ethan, in our Told You So segment?
I had a pretty good week in week 8. To start off the top, my bullish buy last week was Devon Achane. He was a price tag of $6,200 and he scored 26.7 points. And that was with Raheem Mostert tagging 2 touchdowns himself. So I was pretty happy to see Devon Achane, my bullish buy, come through. I also had Bo Nix, a cost of $5,600. He scored nearly 30 points, 29.76. So that was a smash with Bo Nix. He came through. And then another smash at a price tag of 3,500. Cade Otton scores 29.1 points. So a very good week on the pod for me last week.
Yeah, Cade Otton was a smash play at tight end, and it was the week of the tight end during tight end week, and I my big hit last week was David Njoku, $5,100, scored 17.1 points in DFS this week. So nice to see him get back going there too. And so that's what we got for Told You So's from Week 8. Now rounding into Week 9, I got to know, Ethan, who is your bullish buy? Who are you spending the money on to get into your DraftKings lineup that's going to crush this Sunday?
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going back to the well, Devon Achane again. I'm running it back. I just think his price hasn't adjusted enough yet. His price tag is 6,700, which I think is just far too cheap. I mean, he's a top 5 running back like this year every time Tua's at the helm. So I just think he has a pretty juicy matchup against the Buffalo Bills. In week 2 against the Bills, he had 22 carries, 96 yards, and he had 7 for 69 through the air, 29.5 fantasy points. The Bills aren't very good against the running back position. They're 31st, and they're not very good against stopping pass catching running backs. So I think Achane has a big day. He's averaging 17.2 receiving fantasy points per game with Tua under center. That would rank ninth best amongst receivers. So nobody benefits more than A-Chain with Tua under center. And I think they're going to have to score some points against the Buffalo Bills. I think that's going to lend to A-Chain being a huge impact in the receiving game. So I just think at that price point, it's hard not to get the explosive A-Chain in your lineup. There's some really good matchups at the running back position, but I don't think anybody has as much upside as Devon A-Chain.
Yeah, A-Chan's a smash play, especially with Tua back, like you said. I mean, he was one of our favorite home run cuts in round 2 of redrafts, and was living up to it too prior to Tua's injury. So he's definitely happy he's back. I think for all the pieces in the Miami offense, we're happy Tua's back under center for sure.
Except for Waddle.
What's that?
Except for Waddle, he still hasn't got the memo.
Out there dropping passes. Thanks, bud. But I also stuck with the running back theme for my bullish buy here. I went with Alvin Kamara at Carolina, $7,800. Just going with the engine of the Saints offense, and that's been Kamara this year. He's put together another great year. Aging running back, people usually like to stay away, but he's not quite Derrick Henry-esque, but he's proven that older running backs can still get it done, averaging just over 20 fantasy points per week, which is good for RB4 overall on a points per game basis. So gets a great matchup against the Panthers this week that he torched back all the way back in week 1. The Panthers defense gives up the most points in the league to opposing running backs, and Derek Carr is expected to play in this one. So the floor of the offense should be raised. We know Carr likes checking the ball down to Kamara, so look for him to stay busy, and I have him finding the end zone in this one at the lowly Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I like the call. Kamara's been absolutely dominating backfield touches. The offense is going to run through him. They should be up by a ton against the Carolina Panthers. He should be dominating in the rushing and receiving game. So Kamara's been one of the safest running backs this year. And shame on me for fading him a little too much this year. You never know when Father Time's going to catch up. It hasn't caught up to Alvin Kamara yet, and I think he smashes here in week 9.
Yeah, I agree. And for that reason, as we round into our 2 deep segment where we talk about defenses, I'm actually stacking my running back with my defense. It's something that Aaron Downtown Brown loves talking about that on here. So I'm going with the Saints defense at the Carolina Panthers, $3,800. It was kind of a murky week for me at defense. There wasn't a ton I felt great about. In those situations, I typically just like to spend the money. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and get them. Bryce Young is back under center. The Panthers, as we know it, are a mess. They showed a little bit of fight in Denver last week. That's great. But this team still has problems. They just traded away their number 1 receiver in Deontay Johnson. Make sure you check out our other episode about that where we talked about all the news around the league. We talked about that as well as some other things going on in the NFL, the fantasy related. But overall, when it comes to the Saints defense, I just wanted to go ahead and spend the money. So $3,800, pay it up there, and they're going to return value this week in week 9.
Yeah, not much more to add because they're my defense as well. As you said, it was a little murky. And I mean, you see the Carolina Panthers matchup, especially if Bryce Young is at the helm. I mean, the floor is very high for any defense against Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, especially a team that just lost their number 1 receiver. So, yeah, I think it's wheels up for the Saints defense.
Hell yeah, brother. Let's keep it rolling then. Who's wheels up in the bargain basement section here? What cheap plays are you putting into your lineup that are going to return value this week?
Yeah, so last week I mentioned Bo Nix at the quarterback position. I'm going to stick with that theme, and I'm going to go with Matt Stafford at a price of $5,700. The band is back together. Puka, Cooper Kupp, they're back, and my God, did he show out last week? He had 25.8 DraftKings points, 25 for 34, 279 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, for those reports that they said Puka was going to test out the knee in pregame warmups and see how he was going to go, it's like that completely screwed me last week. But I just think Matt Stafford with his full complement of receivers, I mean, at that price point of $5,700, going against the Seattle Seahawks, who hasn't been great against opposing quarterbacks over the past few weeks. I mean, Purdy lit him up 255 for 3 touchdowns, QB6. Even Daniel Jones 257 and 2, QB11. Goff 292 and 2, QB4 overall when they played. So I think Matt Stafford's going to have a good week, and it was hard to pass him up at a price point of 5,700. DraftKings clearly hasn't adjusted to the return of Cup and Puka.
I love everything you just said, and you might be surprised to hear this, but he's my quarterback
Oh yeah.
this week as well. He was one of the guys I was going to bring up in this section. We don't talk about this beforehand, folks, if you can't tell from the last two picks that he had come off the flying off the board here. So I'm with that one. This is going to be a quick section here of our discount plays. But yeah, make sure you get him in there. I'm stacking Puka in my lineup as well with Matt Stafford. So I guess I'm all about the stack this week. Defensive
Stack
running
City,
back,
baby.
yeah, stack city baby. Quarterback, receiver, defense, running back. Um, but no stack here for my guy I want to call it here. That's Sam Laporta at Green Bay, $4,800. The guy he woke up in week 8, had a season high with on the receptions front with 6. Just nice to finally see him get involved with the game plan with some regularity. I think that continues into week 9. And if you're trying to beat the Packers through the air, the way to do it is with the tight end. To give the 24th most points to the position this season. And I'm just kind of hopeful that we get a second half surge from the guy that we was supposed to come into the league as tight end 1 in the 2024 season. And we haven't really gotten that guy yet. But I think we could do it. I think we kind of underestimated some of the injuries he was dealing with in training camp and into the preseason. And now that he's starting to look the part, starting to get more involved, I think that he can kind of take off in the second half. And I think he can definitely live up to that $4,800 price point in week 9.
No, I mean, Laporta's been an enigma this year. It just, he's never really gotten going. Hopefully last week was the start of a good back half of the fantasy season for Sam Laporta. I mean, we all took him early in fantasy drafts, and it really hasn't paid off. So obviously, his price point at $4,800, under $5,000, it just kind of shows you what the type of season he's been having. But I mean, that Lions offense, it's very explosive, and I mean, Laporta had, like you said, had a pretty good stat line last week. And I hope he does continue that. So whenever you can get that upside at the tight end position for under $5,000, I think it's a pretty good call. And I actually did the same thing. I went to not Laporta, but I went to the tight end position for my second pick 6 player, and I went to a guy that's slowly emerging, slowly becoming the guy that we hoped he would, and that's Kyle Pitts, which is similarly priced to Sam Laporta. Kyle Pitts is 4,900, so under 5,000 as well, and he's had double-digit fantasy points in the last 4 games. I mean, they're playing the Dallas Cowboys, and this game has an over/under of 52. So Vegas is projecting a lot of points being scored, and I definitely wanted a piece of this game, and Kyle Pitts was the cheapest way to get that. And I just think Kyle Pitts offers obviously immense upside at the tight end position. He's coming off a 2-touchdown performance, 25.1 fantasy points, and a game he didn't really play much in the second half. They ran like 60% of the time in the second half. They didn't really need to keep the foot on the gas. That might change this week. So I'm going with the upside in Kyle Pitts in my tight end spot.
Like the idea of targeting that game, the high over under is what we want. I thought about putting Kirk Cousins in my lineup, but I couldn't quite get there with our guy Stafford. So he would be my next choice at quarterback at a relatively good cost there in Cousins. But yeah, Pitts is a good call too. He's a player that obviously on the dynasty landscape we've wanted more out of for the last few years. Finally starting to live up to it, as Ethan said, after a good rookie year. But good call there on Pitts. I think that was going to pan out pretty well for you. And let's get into some hot takes here before we close the door here. I got one here. It's going back to my bullish buy. I usually tend to do this on our hot take episodes. I go to my bullish buy, but I'm going to stick with the format here. I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara over 100 total yards and 2+ touchdowns this week against the Carolina Panthers there, Ethan. So you going to put some money on that with me this weekend?
I don't know. It's been a struggle in the betting front with me. So
No, you guys got to keep firing.
I got to keep firing away, firing from the hip. I gotta contact Aaron Brown and put up some crazy parlay because that's definitely gonna hit.
Absolutely, Aaron's our king of the parlay for sure. But what do you got for a hot take for the people in this one, Ethan?
It's going to be similar to yours. I mean, but I'm going to go with my bullish buy, Devon Achane. I think he's going to have over 125 yards rushing and receiving, and I'm gonna say 2 touchdowns as well. So big days for Achane and Kamara.
There you go, folks. Maybe you should be finding ways to get both of those guys into your lineups this week. Just gonna go double barrel at running back like you would have if you were drafting all the way back in like 2001 when some people that we know started playing fantasy. Not quite us, but I was there a handful of years later. But yeah, old school football sometimes wins in the modern NFL. So hopefully that's the case if you go deep at running back. But thanks for going deep with us and finishing out the episode with us here, folks. Have a great week 9. Again, remember, please make sure you're hitting that subscribe button so you're not missing any of our content going forward. Check us out all over social media as well. We're on there at Sunday Surefire. And until next time, folks, peace.